Malik Davenport ran one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. From his penthouse in downtown Atlanta, he could see the entire city buzzing beneath him. Every tower a reminder of how far he'd come. He was precise, polished, untouchable. He didn't miss meetings. He didn't lose deals, and he didn't entertain distractions. But that morning, the distraction called him his mother. Vivian Davenport never raised her voice. She didn't have to. Malik, don't come to your brother's wedding alone. That was all she said. But he knew what it meant. She wasn't worried about appearances. She was worried about legacy. She wanted headlines, grandchildren, a woman on his arm who came from money, carried herself like royalty, and looked good in family portraits. She wanted him to bring Vanessa, and Vanessa Langston would be at that wedding, the one who had once worn his name like jewelry, who walked red carpets beside him, smiled in interviews, and betrayed him with a signature and a settlement. Vivian never said her name. She didn't have to. Malik finished his call and stared out at the skyline. Glass, concrete, everything in order except his personal life. He poured 2 fingers of bourbon and opened the folder. Tony had left on his desk the tab read discrete options. Tony's handwriting, bold, sharp. Like her, inside, were profiles. Dozens of women, professional actresses, all stunning, all trained, all perfect in a way that didn't surprise him. Clean headshots, smiles with lighting behind them, bios full of daytime TV credits and fragrance ads. Women who could fake chemistry, romance, even heartbreak, and never mean a word of it. He flipped page after page, but none of them felt right. None of them felt human. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled. He had no time for this. Sterling Tech was preparing to launch its biggest software release yet. Investors were circling. Competitors were lurking. He was about to introduce a product that could change the market, and yet, here he was. Picking a fake fiancée, there was a knock. Tony didn't wait for permission. She stepped inside with her bag over one shoulder and a look that said she already knew the answer. You didn't like them, she said. I need someone real. She raised one eyebrow. You're literally hiring someone to pretend to love you. Real isn't on the table. I don't want someone who feels like a performance. Tony didn't argue. She reached into her bag and pulled out a second folder. This one wasn't thick. It wasn't labeled. It didn't look like it belonged in this room at all. I didn't include her before, she said. Because she's not an actress, she runs a bookstore in West End. Malik opened the folder. There was only one photo, a candid, not posed, not filtered, a woman standing barefoot on a step stool reaching for a book. Her curls were falling from a messy bun. Her cardigan didn't match her skirt. She looked like she belonged in a different time, maybe a different world. But her smile, it wasn't polished, it wasn't forced. It was the kind of smile that comes from remembering something warm, something worth holding on to. Tony spoke, but he barely heard her. Her name's Jada Freeman. I met her last year when I was hunting for a first edition for my dad. She helped me for an hour. Told me stories about every book. Gave me a discount she didn't have to. She's smart, honest, kind, a little chaotic, but she's real. He didn't answer. He was still looking at the photos. She's not polished, Tony said. She doesn't know your world, but she needs the money. I told her it's a last-minute engagement party gig. She agreed to meet you if it's above board. How much does she know? Enough to be curious. Not enough to say yes. He didn't blink. She's not like the others. No, Tony said. She's not. The photo rested in his hand. Behind Jada, books were stacked sideways. Light came in through the front window of her shop, and you could tell this wasn't a business built for profit. It was built for meaning. She didn't look like someone playing a role. She looked like someone who didn't care if you watched. Set it up, he said. You sure? Tony asked. No, Malik replied. But I want to meet her anyway. That night, he tried to sleep. He read a market analysis, half a legal brief, paced his penthouse from one end to the other. Even considered replying to Vanessa's unread emails. He did in single quotes to Dot instead. He poured another bourbon and stared at Jada's photo again. He had spent years creating distance from anything soft, anything unexpected. His life was built on control, schedules, contracts, silence, and now he was about to invite a stranger into his world. Lie to his family, pretend to be in love, all to avoid the real story. This wasn't just damage control. This was survival, and the part that scared him most. He wanted to do it. The next morning, Jada arrived at Moloch's penthouse exactly at 11 a.m. She felt her heart race slightly as the sleek black car pulled up in front of the tall building. Moloch was already waiting inside, looking as composed as ever, his sharp suit emphasizing his well-defined features. There was something about the way he carried himself, confident but distant, that made her wonder if he ever truly let anyone in. She took a deep breath before stepping out of the car and into the building. She wasn't sure what she expected, but what she saw when she entered his penthouse left her speechless. The apartment was immaculate, filled with modern art and expansive views of the city below. It was beautiful, pristine, and undeniably luxurious, but it didn't feel like a home. It felt like an exhibit, a place where people came to look, but never really stay. Ms. Freeman, Malik greeted her with his usual sharp tone, his eyes meeting hers with quiet intensity. Mr. Davenport, she replied, feeling the familiar sense of formality between them. You said it was urgent. He nodded, stepping aside to let her in. Please, take a seat. I'll explain everything. She sat, hands folded on her lap, her eyes scanning the room. She wasn't about to show how unsettled she felt. She was here to do a job, and that's all she had to focus on. Malik sat across from her and slid a folder across the table. The weight of it seemed heavy in the room. I've been clear about what I need. I'm not asking for much. Just your time, your presence. For one weekend, Jada opened the folder. The first page was a contract, clean and concise. It didn't take long for her to realize what this was, a deal. She read the terms silently. Everything was there, a clear understanding of the role she was to play. A fake fiancé for a weekend, $15,000 for her time. No emotional attachment. No expectations. She signed it, a little surprised at how easy it felt to just follow through. I'm not going to lie, she said, glancing up from the papers. This feels strange. Moloch's lips curled into a faint smile. We'll both be acting. That's the point. But you won't have to fake it all the way. I'll make sure no one suspects it's a lie. And if I don't go along with it? Jada asked, raising an eyebrow. He shrugged. Then I'll be right back where I started, paying a professional to pretend, and none of us will get what we need. She studied him for a moment. What is it that you really need? His expression flickered for a second. A break from the constant pressure, a way to escape the expectations of my family. To be seen the way I want to be seen. She nodded, understanding more than he realized. She had her own reasons for doing this, and she was good at keeping those reasons to herself. You mentioned that you wanted to make this believable. How do we do that? Malik leaned back in his chair, looking at her as if deciding whether to reveal more. It's simple. We start with a backstory. I've already given you the basics. We met at a bookstore, you helped me find a rare book, and we've been inseparable since. Jada smiled slightly. That's a lot of time to account for in a weekend. He looked at her seriously. You're good at this? I trust you can make it. Work. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. I'll make it work. And if I tell my family how we met, you'll back me up, won't you? He asked. Of course, she replied, her voice steady. I'm here for you, for the weekend. Malik held her gaze for a moment, and for the first time, Jada noticed the uncertainty in his eyes. It was fleeting, but it was there. He was just as much of an actor as she was. Maybe more. There was a pause, and then he pushed the pen toward her. We'll start tomorrow. The wedding is in 2 days, and I want everything to be perfect. Jada signed the contract without hesitation. Welcome aboard, Malik said, giving her a rare, appreciative smile. We're in this together. Jada stepped into the penthouse again the next day. this time looking slightly more prepared but still undeniably herself. A linen blouse tucked into high-waisted jeans, curls pinned up with a printed scarf. Her satchel slung over one shoulder. No designer anything, no scent of luxury perfume. Just the faint warmth of lavender, old paper, and something that reminded Malik of home he'd never had. He studied her quietly. There was something calming about the way she moved. She didn't tiptoe around the marble floors like they were sacred. She walked like she belonged. Even though it was clear she'd never been in a place like this before. "Nice view," she said, standing by the window. "You're not what I expected." The words came out before he could stop them. She turned, one brow raised. "And what exactly were you expecting? Someone more, trained." "I'm not here to audition. I'm here because your assistant said you needed help, and I need the money." The way she said it, direct and unashamed, made something shift in him. He gestured toward the couch. She sat with ease, crossing one leg over the other, setting her bag gently beside her like she'd done this 100 times. He followed, setting the contract folder on the table between them. "This isn't a game to me," he said. "I don't want misunderstandings. I need someone to act like my fiancée during my brother's wedding. That's it." She nodded once. "I assumed as much." He opened the folder. "The timeline's here. Payment terms, public expectations, dress code, schedule." She flipped through the pages quickly. "There's a clause here. No kissing, yes. Adjoining rooms. Locked doors, yes. You've clearly done this level of planning before. I like systems, so I'm not the first you are. But the structure comes from experience." She nodded. "Your ex will be there." He hesitated. "Yes, this is about her. No, it's about escaping the narrative. Everyone keeps writing for me." She didn't press further, just closed the folder and leaned back. "I'm not good at lying. You won't have to lie, just stay in the story." "Fine, let's rehearse." He sat up straighter, slid over a printed timeline with bullet points. "We met on April 12th. I came to your bookstore searching for a rare edition of Leaves of Grass." She shook her head. "No one believes you walk into bookstores for poetry." "I like poetry." Then quote, something. He blinked. "I didn't prepare for that." She laughed, leaning back with a grin. "We need to build this story like it actually happened, not like it's been programmed. What do you suggest? You came in looking for a book you couldn't remember the title of. You called it Leaves of Grasshoppers. I laughed at you. We talked for 10 minutes. You left and came back the next week. I didn't charge you for the book. You brought coffee. We sat in the back corner and ended up talking until closing." He stared at her. "You just made that up. I live in stories. That's how I keep my shop alive." He smiled, almost surprised. "You're good at this?" She shrugged. "It's believable because it's messy. What's our favorite song?" "Fly Me to the Moon." You hummed it one day while browsing. I teased you for being cliché. You said you only hum when you're nervous. He stared again. "How are you doing this?" "I'm pretending to know you, not to love you." There's a difference. But the moment those words left her mouth, something shifted again. A silence dropped between them. Not awkward, just heavier. They continued going over the story, step by step, dates, shared meals, favorite movies, a fake vacation in Napa, a disagreement about whether Gatsby was overrated. She filled in the emotions. He memorized the timelines. At one point, he reached for her hand to demonstrate how they'd hold each other at the dinner table. His thumb brushed her knuckles. It was a small touch, but it lingered just long enough to matter. She didn't pull away, but she did look down. He cleared his throat. "We should run the vineyard memory. Let's do it in the kitchen." They moved to the marble island. He poured 2 glasses of red wine, just like they'd practiced. He handed her a glass and began the scenario. "You introduced me to your family. We told them we met at the bookstore. I mentioned how you remembered my coffee order before I ever told you. I teased you for being too organized. You said you liked that I could laugh at you." He nodded, still watching her. She smiled softly, then looked away. The chemistry was building, but neither of them said it out loud. She told him about the time she accidentally locked herself inside her own bookstore for 3 hours because the doorknob snapped off. He laughed, and it wasn't polite. It was loud and real. He told her about a business interview where he called the reporter by the wrong name 3 times. She laughed again. "You're not as perfect as you pretend to be," she said. "I'm not perfect. I'm just trained to act like I am. You hide well. You look at me like I matter." He didn't mean to say that, but he did. Her smile faded slightly. Not because she was offended. Because she didn't know what to do with that level of honesty. His phone buzzed. He checked it. "It's Tony. My mother moved the family dinner up. Florist drama. We should wrap up. Anything specific I need to prepare for? Just be yourself, but polished. My mother reads people like stock reports. She'll know if anything feels off. So don't be me. No. Be the version of you who knows exactly who she is, and doesn't apologize for it." She held his gaze for a second too long. "I'll be ready," he nodded. But as she walked to the elevator and disappeared behind its closing doors, he felt something tighten in his chest. He had created this plan for control. But somehow, control was already slipping. The black sedan pulled up to Jada's apartment at exactly 7 a.m. sharp, just like Malik promised. The engine was already humming when she stepped out onto the sidewalk, wearing a beige trench coat over a navy dress and carrying a suitcase that had seen better years. She hadn't slept much, but her back was straight, her eyes focused, her face calm. No one passing by could have guessed her stomach was turning inside out. As the car rolled away from West End and into the heart of the city, she glanced once over her shoulder at the disappearing outline of her bookstore. She didn't know if she'd return to a second chance or to another locked door. But she wasn't thinking about that now. She had a contract to fulfill. When they reached the top floor of Davenport Tower, the penthouse doors opened and Malik greeted her himself. No assistant, no staff, just him. That alone made her pause. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, with the sleeves rolled slightly. Like he wanted to look relaxed, but couldn't quite let go of control. His shirt was crisp, his posture was tight, but his eyes looked like they hadn't rested all night. "You're early," he said. "You're surprised. Most people show up late when they're nervous." "I'm not most people." He gave a faint smile. "That's becoming clear." Inside, the living room had been rearranged. The leather sofa now faced a coffee table scattered with printouts, photos, and a color-coded timeline of their fake relationship. Jada raised an eyebrow. "You color-coded this. I run a billion-dollar company. I believe in systems." She picked up a photo one Tony had taken the day before, of them standing in front of the building. It looked shockingly real. His arm was around her waist, her hand rested lightly on his chest. Both of them caught mid-laugh. It didn't look like a lie. "I've already memorized most of this," he said, motioning to the documents. "We should rehearse. The wedding is tomorrow. I need to know how you'll respond under pressure." "You mean in front of your mother?" He gave a short laugh. Among others, they sat close, not touching, but within the kind of distance where tension lingers. He asked questions, she answered. "When did we first meet?" "April 12th. You wandered into my shop looking for a rare copy of Leaves of Grass. You were charmingly confused and called it Leaves of Grasshoppers. I corrected you, then offered you coffee out of pity. That's not in the file." I added color. He studied her with something between curiosity and caution. "You're improvising already. It's called making the lie believable. Real relationships have awkward beginnings and inside jokes." He hesitated. "What's our song? Fly Me to the Moon. You hummed it while browsing. I called you corny. You said you only hum when you're nervous." He stared at her again. "You're better at this than I am. I'm not pretending to love you. I'm pretending to know you." That's easier, but even as she said it, the air between them thickened. Their rehearsals started blurring. At one point, he reached for her hand to mimic a gesture he planned to use at dinner. His thumb brushed hers, just for a second, but it stayed there longer than it needed to. Her breath hitched slightly. She hoped he didn't notice. He did. Their eyes met. No dialogue, just awareness. He broke it first, standing quickly. "We should go over the vineyard story." She nodded, heart racing, unsure why her chest felt tight. They moved to the kitchen island. A bottle of red wine waited, part of the rehearsal for their faux dinner with family. He poured her a glass and walked her through the script. But the laughter wasn't forced this time. She told him about how she once locked herself inside her own bookstore after the doorknob broke. He laughed louder than she expected. He told her about a media interview where he called the host by the wrong name 3 times. She grinned. "You're not perfect," she said. "I've never claimed to be." "No, but you're good at pretending." He looked at her, this time not as a business partner, but as someone trying to figure out what exactly was happening between them. "You're not like anyone I've ever brought into this world. Maybe that's a good thing." His phone buzzed. He checked the message. "My mother moved dinner an hour earlier. Apparently, the florist is a disaster, and it's now a family emergency. Do I need to prep for anything? Just be yourself, but clean, controlled. My mother picks up on everything, so don't be me. No. Be the version of you who knows exactly who she is and doesn't apologize for it." She looked at her reflection in the glossy backsplash, hair softly curled, blouse tucked just right, lipstick a muted mauve she never wore in the shop. She looked like someone ready to play a role. But for the first time, she didn't feel like she was disappearing behind it. "I'll be ready." Malik nodded. She grabbed her coat. As she reached the door, he watched her with something unreadable in his expression. He had designed this whole plan for control. To protect himself, to keep his past at a distance. But somehow, this woman, the one who didn't belong in his world, the one who asked nothing from him, was already shifting everything. And he wasn't sure if that terrified him or thrilled him. The drive to Lake Forest took just over an hour. But for Jada, it felt like much longer. She sat in the back seat of the sleek black SUV, her fingers folded and unfolded in her lap. Her navy dress was flawless, her posture straight, but inside, she was counting every breath. Beside her, Malik was silent, focused, unreadable. He looked out the window with the same expression he wore during board meetings. His phone buzzed once. He didn't check it. He glanced sideways at her. "You're okay? I'm about to lie to 100 strangers and your mother. What could possibly go wrong?" He actually chuckled. "Just remember, smile. Touch my arm once. In a while, and whatever you do, don't let her see fear." Sounds like I'm walking into a war zone. He looked at her again. That's not far off. The estate appeared through the trees like something out of a magazine spread. Ivory stone, sweeping lawns, manicured hedges, lanterns lining the front drive, already flickering. The kind of place where people speak in hushed voices and power isn't shown, it's assumed. The car stopped. A valet opened Jada's door. She stepped out slowly, her heels crunching lightly on gravel. The air was cooler here, tinged with roses and old money. She adjusted her coat and took a long look at the house before Malik appeared beside her and offered his arm. She hesitated only for a moment, then took it. Inside the house was quiet opulence. High ceilings, crown molding, a grand staircase that didn't just curve, it announced itself. Chandeliers glowed above them. Waitstaff moved like shadows. Distant murmurs echoed from the parlor. Then came Vivian Davenport. She stood at the top of the stairs like a monarch overseeing her court. Slim, silver hair pinned perfectly, wrapped in a navy gown that looked tailored for royalty. Her expression was pleasant, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. "Mother," Malik said, as they reached the base of the stairs. Vivian descended slowly, her gaze flicking from her son to the woman on his arm. "You must be Jada." "I am," Jada said, extending her hand with calm grace. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Davenport." "Vivian, please," she replied with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Malik hasn't mentioned you before. We wanted time to ourselves before the family started asking questions," Malik said, stepping in quickly. Vivian kept her gaze on Jada. "And what do you do, dear?" "I run a bookstore in West End." Mostly used books. Some rare editions. It belonged to my grandmother. Vivian tilted her head. How quaint. Jada smiled. It's small, yes, but full of stories. I imagine it is. And that's how you two met? Vivian asked, still addressing Jada but with an edge. At the shop, Malik answered. She helped me find a signed copy of East of Eden. Vivian raised an eyebrow. John Steinbeck. I didn't know you read fiction. He's full of surprises, Jada said, before Malik could answer. Turns out, he has a soft spot for poetic tragedy. Malik looked at her, almost caught off guard. Their eyes met for a second. The performance wasn't just holding it, was evolving. Vivian studied them both. Well, I should speak with the caterer. We'll chat more later. I look forward to it, Jada replied with perfect ease. Though her heartbeat was thundering. As Vivian walked away, Malik exhaled. You did great. She hates me. She hates everyone until they prove her wrong. Great, so I just have to win over a woman who thinks Jane Austen is a kitchen appliance. He laughed, louder than he meant to. A few heads turned. Jada flushed but didn't move. I forgot what that feels like, he said softly. What? To laugh like that. They entered the parlor where guests were already sipping champagne. Malik's cousins, investors, friends from boarding school. One by one, he introduced her. She smiled. She shook hands. She remembered names. She answered questions like she was born into this. And with every interaction, she noticed something strange. She wasn't just convincing them, she was convincing herself, not about the lie, but about how natural it felt next to him. Then, she felt it. A shift in the room. The air changed, and she saw her. Vanessa Langston entered like she had been waiting for this moment. Tall, confident, dressed in a deep scarlet gown that clung to every angle of her body like it had been sewn on. Her hair twisted into a soft updo. Her earrings sparkled like threats. And when she saw Malik across the room, standing beside Jada, her lips curved into a smile that felt more like a dare. Malik stiffened. Jada felt it through his arm. Vanessa walked like she had all the time in the world. She didn't approach, she made an entrance. She didn't greet, she performed. She didn't shake hands, she landed blows wrapped in sugar. Malik, she said, holding out her hand. You didn't tell me you were bringing company. He let go of Jada's hand briefly to accept the handshake. 1 second. No more. Vanessa, he said flatly. Then Vanessa turned her eyes on Jada and smiled. And you must be the new fiancée. That's me, Jada said calmly, shaking her hand. Pleasure. Of course it is. The pause that followed was thin, sharp. Malik's always had a thing for bookish girls, Vanessa said, eyes narrowing just enough. And I've always had a thing for men who can admit they don't know everything. Jada replied without blinking. Malik coughed, half laughing. She runs a bookstore, he said. In West End. How charming, Vanessa said. Is it one of those take-a-book leave-a-book setups? No, Jada said, still smiling. It's an actual store, 4 walls. Real conversations. You'd be surprised how rare that is. Vanessa blinked. Malik cleared his throat. We should find our table. But Vanessa wasn't done. So when's the big day? We haven't picked a date, Malik said quickly. We're enjoying the engagement, Jada added, her tone silk smooth. Taking it slow, letting it unfold naturally. Vanessa leaned in just slightly, voice low, but loud enough. Be careful. Malik tends to get distracted. Jada saw it in that moment, not just malice, but fear. Vanessa wasn't just trying to intimidate her, she was trying to reclaim something. I'm not worried, Jada said quietly. If someone leaves, they were never really yours to begin with. And for a second, everything fell away. The room, the people, the noise, just. The 2 women, and the man caught between them. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Then she smiled sweetly, and turned away. I'm sure I'll see you both around. As she walked off, Malik exhaled. I'm sorry, she's a lot, that's one word. You dated her briefly, and under duress. Jada almost laughed. I can see that. They reached their table, seated among extended family and company stakeholders. Jada kept her posture straight and her smile gentle, but inside, everything had changed. This wasn't just a role anymore, it was a chessboard, and Vanessa had just made her opening move. The night moved on under chandeliers that shimmered like frozen stars. The ballroom glowed with money, every detail curated. Ivory linens, polished silverware, champagne towers, flower arrangements like sculptures. And in the center of it all, Jada stood beside Malik with her hand on his arm and her senses heightened. Every stare followed them. Every whisper paused when she passed. She smiled when she needed to, laughed when the moment called for it, and let her fingers rest on Malik's sleeve, just long enough for the image to feel real. But then she saw her Vanessa, still in that red dress, still owning every room she entered, was moving toward them again. This time slower, more deliberate. A storm pretending to be sunshine. Malik's posture changed. Jada felt it instantly, the shift in his body, the tightening of his jaw. He hadn't even spoken yet, but she could already tell this wouldn't end quietly. Vanessa arrived with her signature smile. "You two make quite the picture." "We try," Jada answered without waiting. Vanessa looked her over, then turned to Malik. "I forgot how good you are at putting on a show." "We're not performing," Malik said. "No." Vanessa stepped closer. "Because this feels very, curated." Jada kept her smile controlled. "That's funny, because to me, you seem rehearsed." Vanessa leaned in like she was sharing. "A secret? You're clever. But this world is built on reputation, looks, legacy. Be careful what you play with." "I'm not playing," Jada said calmly. "I'm building something real." Malik stepped between them. "That's enough." Vanessa raised both hands. "Of course, I'd hate to disrupt your little engagement." And just like that, she vanished back into the crowd. Malik turned to Jada. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "You didn't flinch. Did you want me to?" "No. I'm just not used to someone holding their ground with her. I've had harder fights than this." They moved through the rest of the evening in rhythm. Their timing was seamless. Their story flawless. During one toast, Malik leaned down and whispered, "You're stealing the spotlight." Jada tilted her head. "Should I dial it back?" "God, no." Later, during a break between dances, Vivian reappeared, this time carrying 2 glasses of champagne. She handed one to Jada with a perfectly polite smile. "One for the lovely guest," she said, "and one for the woman my son seems surprisingly fond of." Jada took the glass. 2 unexpected choices. 2 open minds. Vivian replied. Their glasses clinked lightly, and for the first time, Vivian's smile almost looked real. As the night wore on, the music softened, and Jada slipped outside onto the terrace. The cool air hit her skin like clarity. She needed a moment to breathe. No guests, no eyes, just sky and silence. But she wasn't alone. Malik stepped outside a few seconds later and leaned against the stone railing next to her. "You're doing better than I imagined," he said. "You sound surprised." "I am. Why?" "Because you're not pretending." She looked at him. "And you're not as cold as you want everyone to believe." His eyes met hers. "You really think that?" "I think you hide behind suits, power plans, but you notice details that no one else does." He didn't respond right away. Instead, he turned to face her fully. "I'm not used to being looked at the way you look at me." "And how's that?" "Like I matter." The music shifted inside. A slow song now. People dancing, laughter fading into low conversations. Jada turned toward the sound. "Do you dance?" "I survive," she said. He extended his hand. "Then let's survive together." She placed her hand in his. He led her to the center of the dance floor, under a sky of fairy lights and trailing roses. His hand rested gently on her waist. The other enclosed hers. They moved slowly, naturally, as if their bodies already knew the rhythm. There were no instructions, no corrections, just motion and warmth. "You know," she whispered, "I expected this to feel fake, and now, I don't know what it feels like, but it doesn't feel like a lie." He looked at her, gaze lingering on her lips before returning to her eyes. I didn't plan on this. Any of this. She nodded. Neither did I. She stumbled slightly, her heel catching on the stone beneath them. Malik caught her quickly, both hands firm on her waist. Their bodies closer now, breaths shallower. Her hand landed on his chest. His heart was steady, strong, just like hers. Neither of them moved, neither of them spoke. He opened his mouth to say something and then came the interruption. Well, Vanessa's voice rang out from the edge of the dance floor, sweet and sharp. The show looks like it's going beautifully. Malik's hands dropped to his sides. Jada turned toward thesound.com, but focused. Would you like to join us? She asked. Oh, I'd hate to intrude on such passionate choreography. Malik stepped forward. We're busy, Vanessa. I can see that, she said. Just don't forget. Weddings are short. Reputations last longer. She turned and walked away, leaving silence in her wake. Jada looked up at Malik. She's not going to stop. She's predictable, he said. You're not. He didn't answer. But his expression said it all. They walked off the dance floor together, their shoulders brushing, the world continuing to spin around them. But in that quiet space between their steps, something had changed again. And this time, it wasn't pretend. The next morning brought sunlight and silence. Jada stood barefoot in the guest suite of the estate, staring out at the garden maze beyond the window. The room was beautiful. More than anything, she was used to white marble floors, gold accents, tall windows draped in velvet, but it didn't feel like hers. Nothing here did. Still, she couldn't deny what she felt the night before when Malik held her, when his hand didn't let go, when the space between pretending and something else grew thin. A knock came, not soft. Intentional. She opened the door and found Tony standing there. Hope you're decent. We have a problem. Jada stepped back and waved her in. Problem how? Vanessa's been talking to the press. Jada tensed. Already. She gave a subtle little quote to a fashion blog. Nothing direct, but it was enough to start the fire. She implied, your relationship is sudden, suspicious, possibly orchestrated. So she's planting doubt, she's good at it, and she knows exactly how far to push without saying anything that'll get her sued. Jada sat on the edge of the bed. What happens now? Tony pulled out her phone and showed her the headline. Is billionaire Malik Davenport's engagement to perfect? Jada swallowed hard. She's trying to force a crack. And if you and Malik don't hold the line, the whole story will fall apart. Before Jada could answer, another knock came. This time, it was Malik. He stepped inside. No suit, just a white dress shirt and black slacks. Sleeves rolled, tension heavy on his face. I saw the article, he said. I didn't say anything to anyone, Jada replied immediately. I know. She's baiting us. We stay calm. Tony folded her arms. Calm is relative. There's already talk among investors. Your family's hearing whispers. Malik looked at Jada. We make our next moves together. No missteps. What does that mean? It means we don't react. We rise. He handed her a garment bag. My mother's hosting a private brunch. Press won't be there, but the inner circle will. You're wearing this. Jada looked at the label. It was a designer dress worth more than her rent. I can't wear this. You will, because they're not going to see a fake. They're going to see the woman I chose. She stared at him. And if I'm not enough, you already are. That's what terrifies her. Jada didn't respond, but the way she looked at him said more than she could admit out loud. By noon, the estate's sunroom was filled with carefully selected guests. Family, longtime friends, potential donors, people who spoke in soft voices and drank champagne. Before lunch, Jada entered on Malik's arm, wearing the dress. Her hair pulled back, gold earrings framing her face, posture perfect. The room paused. Heads turned. She smiled, slow and steady, the kind that says, I belong here and I don't need your permission. Vivian met them halfway through the room. You look stunning, she said to Jada. Thank you, Jada replied. Vivian's tone softened. People are watching, But you're handling it beautifully. We have nothing to hide, Malik said. Vivian looked at her son, then at Jada. And for the first time, there was something resembling approval. Let's keep it that way. They made it through brunch without incident. The conversation flowed. Jada handled questions about their first vacation, their song, their plans. Malik never missed a beat beside her, but as soon as dessert was served, the trap was triggered. One of Vanessa's close friends, a family friend, dressed in soft pink and pearls, leaned in with a careful smile. So Jada, tell us again where you two met. Jada answered without hesitation. At my bookstore. He came in looking for a copy of East of Eden. Ah, yes, the romantic version. Not the one where Tony introduced you after a party last spring. The air shifted Malik's jaw. Jada smiled. We were introduced more than once, but it didn't stick until the bookstore. The woman nodded. That makes sense. Some stories take time to start. Jada sipped her tea like nothing had changed. Malik looked at her with something new. In his eyes, respect and maybe something more. After brunch, they walked through the gardens. The only quiet place left on the estate. You handled that like a pro, he said. She came for me, and you didn't flinch. I didn't have to. The truth doesn't scare me, even if it's fiction. They reached a bench and sat in the shade. For a moment, neither spoke. You keep surprising me, Malik finally said. You say that? Like it's a bad thing. It's not, but it's dangerous. Why? Because the line between what we're pretending and what we're feeling is getting harder to see. Jada looked down. And what are we feeling? He didn't answer. Not with words. He turned toward her slowly, eyes searching hers. The moment heavy with possibility. She didn't look away. He leaned in, but just before his lips could touch hers, she stood. We have a contract. He exhaled and leaned back. I know, but you were going to kiss me. I still might. Don't. Her voice wasn't sharp. It was soft, steady, but final. We still have a job to finish. He nodded. You're right. She started to walk back toward the house. He didn't follow, not yet. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he realized this wasn't just a game anymore. This was risk, and he was already too deep. That evening, the estate was quieter. Most of the guests had gone home. The staff moved like ghosts, resetting the ballroom. Vivian was in meetings with the wedding planner. The chaos of brunch had settled into a fragile calm. Jada sat on the edge of the guest room bed, barefoot, one hand resting on her ankle, thinking. Not about the lie. She had memorized every line of the story. What troubled her now wasn't what she was pretending. It was what she was starting to feel. She had drawn the line earlier that afternoon, stopped him before the kiss, reminded them both of the contract. But her heart hadn't stopped racing since. And every time she looked at him, every time he looked back, the boundaries blurred a little more. There was a knock at her door. She hesitated before answering. It was Malik, dressed down again. No tie, shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He looked like a man trying not to think too hard, like someone stuck between clarity and confusion. Hey, he said. Hey, can I come in? She stepped aside and let him in. The air between them was still heavy. They didn't sit. Just stood across from each other, to people who had built a fantasy, now trying to survive its truth. I wanted to say thank you, he began. For what? For saving brunch? For keeping your composure? For holding your own when half the room wanted to tear you apart? She tilted her head slightly. That's not why you're here. No, he said. It's not. Silence stretched. He took a step closer. You've changed everything. She stayed where she was. This wasn't supposed to happen. No, it's not real. Then why does it feel like it is? She shook her head slowly, almost whispering. Because we made it believable. We rehearsed it. We lived it for 3 days. And yet, he said, stepping closer, I haven't rehearsed what I'm feeling right now. Her breath caught. He was in front of her now, only inches away. His voice was low, steady, stripped of all his usual control. When I hired you, I needed an escape, a solution, something that looked perfect from the outside so I wouldn't have to face what was broken inside. She looked at him, eyes soft but steady. And now I don't know where the act ends. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she reached for his hand. They stood, like that, no kiss. No touch beyond that simple connection. But it was more intimate than anything they'd done. And then, her phone buzzed. She checked it. A message from Tony, we have a new problem, call me now. Jada looked at Malik. I have to take this, he nodded, stepping back. She left the room and walked to the hallway. Called immediately. Tony picked up on the first ring. Someone's digging. Into what? Into you. Jada's heart dropped. How much have they found? Not sure yet, but I've been getting inquiries. Background checks. Phone calls from people I don't even know. Vanessa's pushing harder. She's trying to expose me. She's trying to expose the lie. Jada closed her eyes. Then maybe the lie is about to collapse. No, Tony said. We're going to fix this, but you need to prepare. If she finds anything she can use, she will. I don't have anything to hide. She doesn't need truth. She just needs doubt. Jada ended the call and leaned against the wall. The cool plaster grounding her for a second. Back inside the room, Malik waited, his shoulders tense. What was that? She's coming after us harder now. He nodded once, slowly. Let her. That's not confidence, that's pride. No, that's belief, in you. She stared at him. Why? Because you've held up under pressure better than people trained for this. You walked into a world that never accepted outsiders and made them pay attention. I'm not the threat she thinks I am, but you are. He stepped toward her again. And you're not alone in this. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Then, let's see what happens when we stop reacting and start pushing back. He smiled. Not a perfect smile, not practiced, just real. They stood together now, not just as a fake couple, but as allies, and maybe just maybe something more. By morning, the weather had shifted. The sky outside the estate was overcast, the light flatter, the air colder. Jada stood in the mirror adjusting the earrings Malik's mother had insisted she borrow for the rehearsal brunch. Diamonds, delicate, and probably older than her entire building lease. They didn't feel like hers. But everything about this weekend had started to feel like something borrowed. Time, trust, him, Malik, had been quiet since last night. No late knocks, no texts, no updates. She could still feel the weight of his words, the intensity in his eyes. But she also felt the weight of something coming, something they hadn't prepared for. She stepped into the main hallway and saw Tony waiting near the staircase. Arms folded tight. Tell me, Jada said immediately. Tony handed her a printed article, headline in bold. Malik Davenport's engagement raises red flags. Who is Jada Freeman really? Beneath it, grainy photos of her bookstore. Her old apartment. Her with her grandmother from years ago. Private moments dragged into public hands. They found me, Jada whispered. They made you into a story, Tony said, and not the one we wrote. The article didn't accuse her of anything criminal, but it painted her as unstable, untrustworthy, desperate. A woman clinging to a billionaire for relevance. It twisted the bookstore into a failing business. Twisted her grandmother into a burden. Called her quiet life a mask. This is what Vanessa does, Tony said. She doesn't fight you directly. She lets the world turn against you first. Jada folded the paper in half and breathed through her nose. Has Malik seen it? Not yet. Good. She didn't say anything more. Just walked away with purpose. Downstairs, the estate buzzed with last-minute wedding prep. People moved, like pieces in a machine, but when Jada entered the living room, everything stopped. Vivian was there. So was Malik and Vanessa. Vivian stood by the fireplace holding the same article. Malik's fists were clenched at his sides. Vanessa smiled faintly. I see the news travels fast. Jada stepped forward without flinching. That's not a story, that's an attack. Vivian spoke quietly. Is any of it true? I run a bookstore, I don't run from who I am. Malik looked at her, his face unreadable, his silence louder than Vanessa's smugness. Vanessa walked slowly toward them, voice soft but cutting. You thought you could just slip into this world. It doesn't work like that. You don't get to rewrite your past just because you're standing next to him. I never tried to, Jada said. But you did lie. You're not his fiancée. You a prop. The room went dead silent. Malik finally moved. He stepped forward, face hard, voice low. Enough. No, Vanessa said. They deserve to know who she really is. I know exactly who she is. He turned to the room, double quotes. Yes. I hired her. Yes. This started as a lie, but not because of who she is. Because of who I was too afraid to be. Vivian narrowed her eyes. You're admitting this publicly. I am, because I'm tired of living a life that looks perfect but feels empty. Jada didn't pretend to love me. I'm the one who pretended not to feel anything. Jada froze. She hadn't expected him to say that. Not like this. Not in front of everyone. She walked into this mess with nothing, Malik said, and still gave me something real. Vanessa looked stunned. Vivian said nothing. Jada turned to him. You didn't have to do that. I did. She looked at him a long time, then turned to Vivian. I never meant to lie to your family. But I did. I followed a contract. I said what I was told to say, and I was wrong. She paused, steadying herself. But I never lied about who I am. Not once. Vivian studied her for several long seconds, then nodded once, ever so slightly. You should go, Jada told Malik quietly. What? You need to be there for your brother. This wedding is still happening, and I don't belong in it anymore. I don't want to go without. You don't get to decide this part, not after what we built on half-truths. She handed him back the earrings, pulled the ring from her finger, and placed it in his hand. You said it yourself. You needed a lie to escape the truth. He looked like he wanted to speak, but he didn't. She walked past him, past everyone, out the front door and into the open air, without crying, without collapsing. Because, if she had stayed 1 second longer, she might have done both. Ada didn't cry in the car. She didn't speak to the driver. She didn't check her phone. She just watched the trees blur past the window, the mansion fading into distance. Like a dream she never asked for, but somehow still wanted to hold on to. Back in West End, the sky was the same color as the concrete beneath her feet. Her bookstore looked untouched, quiet, but everything inside her had changed. She unlocked the door and stepped into the stillness. The smell of old pages hit her like comfort. Her world small, imperfect. Hers. She walked behind the counter and touched the framed photo of her grandmother, still perched on the shelf. Her hand lingered there. She had survived exposure. A smear campaign. A lie she agreed to live inside. And she'd walked out of it with her dignity intact. But part of her still ached. Because, even if none of it was real, the way Malik had looked at her had felt real. The way his hand had held hers. The way his voice had softened when he forgot they were pretending. That had been real. She didn't regret leaving, but she regretted the reason. She had to. 2 days passed. The wedding happened. Photos hit the tabloids. Vanessa smiled in the background of one. Malik stood at the altar with his brother, looking exactly how he always looked, composed, controlled. Alone, Jada didn't watch the coverage. She didn't need to, but on the third morning, the bell above the door rang. She was behind the register, shelving a stack of used poetry books. She didn't look up right away. I hear you still carry Steinbeck. The voice stopped her cold. She turned. Malik stood there, no suit, no tie, just a dark sweater and tired eyes. You left, she said. You asked me to. You could have chased me. You deserved space. She waited. He stepped closer, but I didn't come to defend what we were. I came to ask for something new. She raised an eyebrow. Truth, he said. Without performance. Without contracts. You think it's that simple? No. But I'm done hiding. I hired you because I didn't want to feel anything real. And you broke that rule just by existing. She crossed her arms. You came all the way here for a confession. No. I came to ask for one more chance, not to pretend, but to try. She didn't speak, not yet. He stepped forward again. Me to go, and I'll go. But if even one part of you wants to find out what this could be, outside of a lie, say something. The room was still. The weight of everything hovered between them. Jada looked at him, saw all of it. The fear, the hope. The man who had built walls his whole life and now stood in front of her, with none left. She exhaled slowly. Then she walked around the counter, and stood in front of him. She didn't kiss him, didn't say anything sweet. She just reached for his hand, and this time, it wasn't for show.